this red-hot Thomas More team.
On the other side, looking at Thomas More, once again you have a high-powered offense for the Saints, 77 points a game, tops in the PAC. But it's not what we've been accustomed to. It's not Drew Mumford and Nate McGovney being almost 50, 40, 90 shooters. We have perhaps the premier front court player in the PAC now residing in Thomas More. Remember, Sean Kett graduating from St. Vincent. Simon Clifford comes in. He's a 6'6 junior transfer from Cleveland State. Just ask Waynesburg, a season-high 24 against the Yellow Jackets, 10 for 11 from the floor, 8 for 10 from the free throw line in that game, a double-double in that victory for Thomas More. And also look out for Dan Williams. He's been there for a couple of years now, almost up to 15 points per game, shooting 38% from beyond the arc at a high volume.
Yeah, Thomas More coming off. Who else do they count on?
And defensively, the numbers jump off the page for Geneva in a really bad way. Westminster gives up 80 points per game, second worst. Geneva gives up about 90 points per game.
That's rough.
Far and away the worst in the PAC. Opponents shoot over 50% from the floor. Not even the best offensive team in the PAC shoots 50% from the floor. And outside of the top two guys, Adam Scheck, Licklider, Vaudrin, who is there for Geneva? It really hurts to lose Tyler DiMazzo and Jacob Jaros, who's an underrated loss for this team, who shot 58% from the floor, led the team in blocks, was a presence inside and something that Geneva's really missing this year. Westminster, I like their win over Thomas More. I like how deep they are. I'm not sure who the best player on Westminster's team is. They have a lot of good players. I'm not sure what their best lineup is. 3 of their top 4 scorers come off the bench, and Jarrett Vrabel, Cam Posguy, and Austin Armwood.
Yeah, since losing here.
Well, Chatham coming off perhaps the biggest win in program history against Grove City this past week. 10 for 20 from beyond the arc in that game. It didn't matter that Chatham got out-rebounded. And when you look at the last 3 games, Chatham's made 34 of 79 threes. That's 43% from beyond the arc, over 10 threes made in each of the last 3 games. That's something that Waynesburg absolutely needs to take into account. And really, this is a balanced Chatham attack with the 4 top leading scorers all averaging between 10 and 12 points. And coming into this week, we're within 5 shots of each other. There's no one guy you can key in on this Chatham team. And really, it's about defending the three-point line and taking advantage of Chatham in size, where they're rather undersized.
You're exactly. Waynesburg going to fare well in this contest.
It's hard for me to see either team blowing out the other team. Waynesburg has been competitive in every single game. Every single game the Yellow Jackets have been in this season, against St. Vincent, against W&J, the best team, the worst team in the conference. Waynesburg finally comes home, 0-10 away from the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse, 2-2 here. I've got the Yellow Jackets winning the first ever meet with Chatham.
Rudy's been great for the now against a young Chatham team.
Very few complaints for this Waynesburg team. A 25-7 run after trailing 5-0 to start this game. Carson, you mentioned it when we were watching it over and over and over again. Shot selection. Get to the rim. So many times, especially early in this game, Waynesburg was able to get easy baskets off Chatham trying to press this team. And then the bench kick. Brendan Smith, a big 5 points. And Christian Caroli, how welcome is his return to this team? So aggressive. Matt Cole touched on it during the broadcast. He is fearless going to the rim. He's an able shooter, and he's certainly a missing ingredient that this team has been needing. You get the studs putting it up, Richie, Durham, but only 6 points from the other starters. You get the pickup off the bench with Caroli and Smith, and that's the kind of balanced scoring attack you're going to need from this Waynesburg team. And then a big key for the second half, Chatham's going to shoot a lot of threes. It's just what they do. Collect the long rebound. Hold them to one shot, win this ball game.
Yeah, it's going to come for Chet.
Well, I love to see a game like this in which the game was decided by big plays going both ways. I loved the energy that Brendan Smith brought to this Waynesburg lineup, and you saw the impact that a lot of these players that Waynesburg had coming off the bench. Brendan Smith, 7 points in 9 minutes. Caroli, 15 minutes, 9 points. John Knabb only played 17 minutes, but he was outstanding tonight. It's those players making those plays. John Knabb, after the lead had been cut to just 3 points, going to the rim, picking up the foul, extending this lead, and then at the end of the game, it was Durham, it was Richie closing the game. Those are your stars. That's what they're there for. They took big shots, they make big shots. Kudos to them, and kudos to Waynesburg defensively. First time that Chatham's been held under 10 3-pointers in the last 3 games coming into this game. So good job running them off the 3-point line.
Yeah, defended the arc pretty well in this.
Back on the Waynesburg University Sports Network, Chatham, Waynesburg, a women's quarterfinal matchup right here at the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse. It's time to tackle it. Andy Stanko, RJ Lacey. These two teams met on Saturday. The most recent meeting, the season finale, Waynesburg won 69-55 in Chatham. Waynesburg, a dominant performance, especially on the glass, RJ.
That's been the recipe of success this whole season for Waynesburg.
Another double for Knetzer in that game, 15 and 12. And one thing I really want to point out for the Jackets is just 17 turnovers. That number seems sort of high, but consider this. The first meeting between these two teams, Waynesburg turned it over 30 times on this very floor. earlier in the season, cutting that number down. Coach Jones wants it to be in that range. This is an aggressive Yellow Jacket team, and being plus 30 or plus 24 in the rebounding margin, having more offensive rebounds than Chatham had in terms of defensive rebounds. That's a dominant performance, and as you mentioned, RJ, it masked a really, really poor shooting night for the Jackets. I can't see Waynesburg shooting 1 for 14 from 3 again. Waynesburg did a good job of taking care of the ball, limited to Chatham to 34% from the floor. I have the Jackets in this ball game. Which way are you leaning, RJ?
I'm going to go with the Jackets as well.
Thank you, gentlemen. 33-23, the Jackets holding a 10-point lead, ending the first quarter with a 6-point lead, and an interesting first half of basketball considering Addie Knetzer, unable to score, had a bunch of good looks early, but really Waynesburg, the 3-ball, huge. 4 threes in the first half, a lot of them very deep, momentum-swinging threes. What do you make of this first 20 minutes?
Against themselves.
The vast majority of Waynesburg's points come from the 3-ball and the free throw line. Just a number, I count 3, 4, 5 made twos, 4 threes, and a whole bunch of free throws. The Jackets with a big edge, 8-2 from the stripe in the first quarter, and just 12 points in the first quarter for Chatham, so a chance for Waynesburg to get to the free throw line, to slow the game down, and really get some of the big players for Chatham in foul trouble. A handful of Chatham players have 2 fouls, most notably Jessie Hinkle picking up her 2nd foul late in that first quarter, and she's the biggest girl in terms of someone who can hang with Addie Knetzer underneath. Her team high 5 points. When we come back, we'll recap the men last night, and then we will sit down with Commissioner Joe Onderko of the PAC. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mitch. 80-58, your final score. The women advanced to Crestview Hills, Kentucky, and I'd say it was a big deal. Waynesburg got that number 3 seed, a game against Chatham, a team that Waynesburg was able to beat twice during the regular season. And you saw in the 5-4 matchup, St. Vincent topping Grove City, so an easier quarterfinals matchup, and now to the semifinals against W&J rather than Thomas More. But what did we think about the second half of this game? The Jackets came out on fire. Heather Davis a couple of threes, Lauren Blair getting in on the action. All in all, 9 threes for Waynesburg and just burying Chatham in the second half. I was really impressed with the balanced scoring attack that the Jackets were able to have. As of late, it's been some big games from Addie Knetzer, namely the Bethany game where she was dominant. And this is one where we thought coming in she could have a big one. Chatham lacking the size, Knetzer just 11 points. But when you spread the scoring out, 8 for Bobby, 10 for Blair, 13 for Gelman, 14 for Davis, this is one of those rare games where you had everyone rolling for the most part. And I would say a steadying force, especially into the fourth quarter where Chatham went on a little bit of a run. I would say is Cassidy O'Keefe really getting things done for the Jackets, 7 points off the bench. But turning towards W&J, swept Waynesburg 77-64, 90-84 in the most recent meeting. It was tied with a couple of minutes to go. I think Waynesburg certainly has a chance against the Presidents.
I think they have a great first championship game under Sam Jones.
For Coach Jones, it'll be all about slowing down Becca Belhigh of the Presidents. She had 29 points, 13-15 from the free throw line in the most recent meeting with the Jackets. But RJ, we're going to wrap it up here. Halftime between Waynesburg University and Chatham. PAC women's quarterfinal, the Jackets up 10, and we're really happy to have Commissioner Joe Onderko of the PAC. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Is there a better week in your job than the PAC basketball tournament week?
There aren't many better. How's that? Is that a good answer? This is a
it's
lot of
certainly
fun
up
this
there.
week. I love getting out to the campuses and great environments. You've got a great one here at Waynesburg. Tremendous competition, and we see the bar rise a little bit more with PAC basketball every year. It's a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of PAC basketball, we've got a couple of fledgling, if not full-fledged dynasties, and Thomas More on the women's side, St. Vincent 3 in a row on the men's side. How do you guys view that at the conference office? Is that a good thing for the conference, a bad thing for the conference? How do you look at that?
I mean, there's pros and cons anyway. You love parity. And we have that to a large degree, I'd say, especially lower down, because everyone feels like they have a chance to compete. At the same time, I think especially with Thomas More winning the women's basketball national championship last year.
That's a good thing for the PAC.
You can't put a value on what that means for the PAC, on the publicity we've gotten, the respect we've gotten. So, I think you got to look at it either way. I think the key thing is that the bar rises, like I said before, and that the competition gets better every year, and every team has to up their game every year. So all in all, that rising tide is making the PAC better, and that's what's important.
You mentioned the word parity, and I would certainly agree with you. When I've seen the last couple of years teams like Carnegie Mellon, Case Western in football coming together, this past year in men's basketball, Westminster a couple big wins, Waynesburg a couple big wins. Why do you think that is in the PAC that you have that balance?
Well, I mean, that's a great point. I think if you take Thomas More out of the equation, I mean, you have schools that are in the same geographic area, recruiting a lot of the same kids. Everybody knows each other. There, there's so many ties here in Western Pennsylvania. So I think that's part of it. And I think also, like you mentioned, the addition of Case and CMU in football. Well, I mean, the PAC was already a pretty powerful football conference. You bring in two heavyweights like that, and again, you're just raising the bar for everybody. I think what it's done, though, is I think our national reputation has really taken a lift.
Well, a team like Westminster winning a bowl game this year.
Absolutely. We were 3-0 in the postseason in football this year. That's the first time that's ever happened. So, those type of things, those kind of metrics are something we can really use and that our coaches use to sell better, more talented recruits to come in. Right.
We're sitting down with PAC Commissioner Joe Onderko joining us on the Waynesburg University Sports Network. Chatham's here today, and Chatham's been a really interesting case in the PAC, I'd say on the men and women's side.
Yeah.
The women's side coming along, getting better with a lot of their programs, and the men's side now allowing males to enroll. What's that whole process been like, and how have you seen Chatham come along?
Well, I mean, they're just a different athletic program now. I think when they were single gender, they were really limited in the number of kids that showed interest in going there. Now that they're co-ed, they can recruit kids that really didn't have much interest before. We've seen it on the men's side. I mean, they've been immediately competitive. They won a playoff game. I mean, they've got a really bright future. But I think you can see here tonight, too, you're going to see a difference in their women's teams. Everybody kind of lost sight of that. But they are recruiting better, more talented athletes. And, I mean, when they hosted the game Monday, it was their first playoff game they've hosted in 9 years. I guarantee you that's not going to be the last. They're going to be a program to reckon with in years to come.
What have been the challenges of getting Chatham into the PAC, all sports? How much farther does Chatham need to go?
Well, I mean, it's more on them than on us, I would say. They're trying to use athletics, like a lot of our schools, to drive enrollment, to build the men's side of the college. And I think they're doing that. I think they've had some sports that's gone better than others. Certainly men's basketball has been a real success for them.
Yes.
They've got a new athletic director who really understands their challenges, and I think it really has a great vision for where that department's going to end up. And I think within the next 2-3 years, you're going to see them competing across the board and everything.
All right, now on a grander scale, the President's Athletic Conference itself, what's next? What are you looking at in the office saying we need to clean this up, or we're trying to make another big step?
Well, we're really happy where we're at. We've had stability. We've had the same membership now for 10 years, and I think our reputation has really grown. One thing we're going to look to do in the next few years, we're going to look at possibly hosting some NCAA national championships within PAC territory. We're going to be bidding on those this coming summer. Probably wouldn't be for a few years down the road, but that's something we haven't done. We haven't had the spotlight on us as a host of a national championship event, and so I think that's something that the administrators in the league and I are pretty excited about.
All right, last question for you, Joe, and we'll get you out of here. Your opinion, the best player in the PAC this year? Are you going with Sydney Moss again? Any sport, though. We've got some great wrestlers, some national attention.
In all sports, you mean?
Yeah, a national attention for some football players.
I mean, when you're talking about the two-time National Player of the Year, it's pretty hard to argue with that. But I mean, you could make a case for some other great athletes. Be it we had a national champion wrestler from W&J last year. Swimmers, we've had several national qualifiers. Across the board, we're very fortunate to have great athletic programs, great members, and I'm just very privileged to be in this role and really get to enjoy the ride and come and enjoy great games like tonight.
Well, Joe, enjoy the second half. Waynesburg up 33-23. We'll be back with the second half right here on the Waynesburg University Sports Network.